Hi everyone, it's Kat here again from Gate to Gangway. So this time we're reviewing the Harmony of the Seas. This is one of the big Oasis Class ships, not quite as big as the Icon, but big enough. So we boarded the cruise ship in Port Canaveral on a 7-night cruise, headed down to St. Thomas, St. Martin, and then the last stop was CocoCay. Boarding the Harmony of the Seas was pretty amazing. I mean, just the size of it alone, we'd never been on anything that big up until that cruise. Boarding in the ship, you entered into the Royal Promenade and you just need a few minutes to look around. It's so big. On board these Oasis Class ships is Central Park, so it's a big garden area. It takes about half of the ship, about halfway down the ship as well. We had a good look around that, had a look at the bars. We stopped in and had a bit of a snack at the Park Cafe. Headed straight upstairs to start some of the activities. We always have to go straight to the mini golf, get that all out of the way. Down on the boardwalk was the bottom of the Abyss slide. They had the carousel, they had Johnny Rockets, there was plenty to do in here. This was a big area where they had lots of kids' activities. Because it was so quiet on boarding day, we thought we'd head straight up to the zip line. So up on the top deck is the zip line that goes right across the boardwalk. So right across the top, you get hooked up and you get all secured, and then they'll clip you up and then you can swing straight across the top. I probably wouldn't recommend doing it in a dress as I did on boarding day. After I had a go, Dan was lining up. But if you have a look down into this ship, from standing up here where we are, it looks like there's two ships side by side, just with this central bit in the middle. Where I'm pointing to there is our cabin. So we had an inside balcony room, which I'll show you more in just a moment. The reason we chose this room is because we wanted to be able to see the ocean, but we also wanted to try something new on a ship where we'd never had an inside balcony room before. We were able to look down onto the promenade, see people ziplining anytime we wanted, and watch the shows in the Aquadome. So this is our room. So as we come in, we had the double bed and we had a sofa bed that was set up for Levi. He was able to sleep on it. Of course, as we've come in, Levi was pretty amazed by the room. Out on our balcony, you could see the rock climbing, you could see the Abyss slide, the boardwalk, and the best thing that I liked about it is at night, I could sit there and watch the aqua show. The sail away party on a Royal Caribbean, they do try to encourage everyone to come down there. It doesn't have the same setup as like it does on other ships, mainly Carnival, where they do get a really big crowd and everyone's into it. The Abyss slide, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that. They're two sides side by side. From up on the top, takes you down to the boardwalk. We were able to race each other all the way down. I think everyone on the ship heard me scream. Down in the bottom while we're on that, Levi was able to have a couple of rides on the carousel. He quite enjoyed it. Probably a little bit old for it, but it was something different again. So the shows at night, the main one I liked is this one. This is the aqua show. So if you sit down in the front where you can see the audience there, you actually get soaked. So the second time we watched it, we thought we'll go down and sit right in the front row. We didn't tell Levi that he would get wet, and they were splashing us, they were kicking water. Every time they're diving into the water, the pool, you would get wet. By the end of the show, we were completely saturated, but it doesn't matter. We had a couple of steps to our room where we could quickly get changed and move on with it. In this show, it had slackliners and really talented divers. There was plenty of dancers in there. They had the aerial artists as well. So a lot of the show, when you're sitting down the front, you're looking up into the ceiling. There was tightrope walkers that were walking across the top. That was a little bit hard to see when you're sitting down the front. The aerial artists coming right down, almost touching you and then going back up into the air. From our room, that was my favourite place to watch it. We could sit there on the balcony and you could see the divers right up the top. It was about 20-metre dive. So they're standing up the top and then you could see them dive. This was also the best place to see the tightrope walkers. So the tightrope almost went from our balcony up to the top where they're diving, where you could watch them quite easily without having to look all the way up. During the day, we did other activities like the rock climbing. This was almost near our room. Every time we go, Dan always has to climb up the top. He's not happy until he rings that bell. There was also a couple of water slides on each side of the ship. We mainly did this one, so it came from the top. You would circle down, a bit like we were calling it the toilet flusher. Half the time though, Levi, Dan, myself, we could never get all the way down without having to try and crawl our way out of the slide like he's about to do here. I'd have to say with nearly 7,000 people on board the ship, we were pretty lucky. We never had to wait too long on the water slides. I reckon 10 to 15 minutes was the longest we wait for the water slides. Even sometimes we were able to go straight back up and get down on it again. With the flow rider, this was probably the longest we had to wait. It was probably about half an hour to have a go on it. They had 2 areas set up on the flow riders where you could have a go. Every now and then we had to stop for a bit of a break for food. We'd go to the main dining room on most nights just because we do like the situation where you have the same waiter and they know what you like. Every single night the waiter would bring Levi out the Royal Caribbean chocolate cake. It was a good mix of chocolate cake, chocolate mousse, and he would give it a thumbs up every night. The waiter just knew to bring it out. On the Harmony of the Seas, it had a place called Absolute Zero, so at night time it would have different ice skating shows. I think there was 2 or 3 different shows on our cruise, but during the day they'd have open skates where the team from the ice skating show would come down and help you learn how to skate if you needed to. So it was ice skating, you could hire them. They usually had half an hour sessions that you could book on the app or just turn up and hope that nobody showed up for that session. Different theme parties were held in the Royal Promenade at night. So I think on our cruise we had an 80s and a 90s dance party. So the entertainment crew came down, had a bit of a show on, and then they had music playing for the rest of the night. It's always a pretty busy area on the ship, the Royal Promenade, especially with Sorrento's Pizza being open almost all day. People could go there. One of the bars in there that we did like going to was the Rising Tide bar. So you could get on at either the Royal Promenade or you could go on at Central Park. So it was a floating bar. It would go in between the floors. It was about 7 or 8 minutes in between each floor. You go on there, get a drink, and then you could get off at Central Park, or you could stay on for a couple of different rides up and down. Entertainment during the sea days is always pretty good on Royal Caribbean. Probably some of the funniest shows are always the Sexy Man competition or the belly flop competition. This is normally where heaps of people come out on the top deck. They hang around the pools, they watch the shows, they have a bit of a laugh. Everyone votes for who they think's the sexiest man or the best person that's done the biggest belly flop. Unique to the Harmony of the Seas was the Broadway show of Grease on board this ship. It was a full Broadway stage show. There was about 30 people in the cast and it was a great night. A little bit later on in the cruise, we found the bridge wing. So this is located just above the bridge where the captain is. 2 wings on each side of the ship, glass bottom floor, and you can see all the way down to the ocean. Then there was the morning we woke up at Perfect Day at CocoCay. I wasn't sure what to expect. I'd seen all the photos, but I thought it really couldn't be as bright and colourful as it was. But it really was. This is what we could see as we woke up, looking out our balcony. We headed down to Perfect Day at CocoCay, and this was the Oasis Lagoon pool. Big, massive pool area where all the sun lounges around there are free. Most of the sun lounges that we found, everything was free except for some of the private areas. We spent the whole day there. We didn't spend a cent. All the food, all the basic drinks that are on board Royal Caribbean were free. It's only if we wanted to pay for alcohol or anything special. As we were leaving Perfect Day at CocoCay, it was a bit sad because we knew that was our last night on board the ship. We had one last big walk around the whole cruise ship. It's normally pretty quiet on the last night. Everyone's packing or they're going to the casino for their last minute chance. They might be doing the shopping, getting the alcohol, but you have the ship to yourself. When you walk around and everything's quiet, you get to watch that sunset for one last time. Would we travel on Harmony of the Seas again? 100% we would, but I think I'm going to try Utopia.